Thanks, everybody, for coming. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Cheryl Ehrman. I'm the Don Beal Dean of the Davidson College of Engineering. And today it's my pleasure to welcome our first Silicon Valley Leaders Symposium speaker for the spring 2018 semester, Brienne Gelforfar, co-founder of Entefy. So just a little bit about her. Brienne got her bachelor's degree in economics from Santa Clara University in 2012. At the age of 17, she set a world record as the youngest college graduate to raise $1 million in venture funding, which has since grown to $17.7 million. Starting from a sketch they made in a coffee shop, Brienne and her brother Alston co-founded Entefy, a Palo Alto digital communication and artificial intelligence company building the first universal communicator, a smart platform that uses cognitive AI to provide users seamless access to all of the people, services, and smart things in their lives. The company's patent portfolio consists of 46 issued and filed patents in core technologies, including AI, data security, communication, and search. A leader among young entrepreneurs, Brienne has been covered by international media, including Fast Company, CNN Money, Forbes, NBC, and the Huffington Post, and has been featured in the documentary film She Started It, highlighting women tech founders around the globe. Once again, please help me welcoming Brienne Gelforfar, co-founder of Entefy. Welcome.
I'd like to start today just by asking all of you a question. In your mind, what is the most precious thing in the world? Just feel free to shout it out or raise your hands. Or Family? Oh, wow, a couple times. Awesome. What else? Life? Wow, twice again. That was great. Okay, what else? One more. Freedom, education. Yes, all of these are very important. They're very valuable. In my mind, though, if you think about it, I think the most precious thing in the world is time. So the question becomes, why is time the most precious thing in the world? Well, there are a few reasons. If you really think about it, time is what makes everything possible. Our families, our careers, the growth of our society, all of our innovation, everything that matters in life for all of us is made possible by time. It's also unforgiving and it stops for no one. I'm sure you have that feeling every day just as much as I do. No matter how much we try, the clock continues to move forward and it makes no exceptions. The third thing is that time is highly undervalued, which makes it a pretty exceptional investment. And if you think about it, people have even gotten used to the idea of exchanging money for their time, sometimes even very little money. The other thing that's really important is that time is not reversible. We always say that you can make lemonade out of lemons, but good luck trying to make lemons back from lemonade. Lastly, time is in limited supply for each of us, which makes it a terrible thing for us to waste. So I know we don't have a ton of time today, but I'll just spend a couple of moments on the early years and essentially what got us here today. So if you look about 13.7 billion years ago, there was a Big Bang. 4.5 billion years ago, Earth was made. And today, we are here. So in my mind, these are the three most significant events that have brought us here to this exact moment through time. And without time, we essentially wouldn't be here, and none of that would have been possible. So now that we've covered all of that ground, let me share with you a little bit about my relationship with time. I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. My parents have always been entrepreneurs. Time was something to us that's always been highly prized. And it's always been about impact and efficiency and being able to do more in less time. But most importantly, it's always been about leaving our legacy and building our legacy over time with the people around us. That's sort of what drives us, and we continue to do so even at our company today. When I was in middle school, I had an opportunity to accelerate my education. I had discovered a program where I could essentially condense 8 years of combined high school and college into just about 3. I mean, that was a really scary thought, naturally. I had no idea what to expect. Just imagine being in 8th grade and someone saying, hey, do you want to do high school and college all at the same time and finish really fast? Sounds great because there's a lot of extra time at the other end. But of course, it was an extremely challenging program. What kept me through it and what kept me very engaged throughout to just finish was the idea of having these extra few years to figure out what I really wanted to do. So this is me and my brother, Alston. He's the guy. That's me. This was back when we started our company, Entefy. And essentially, we had this extra 5 years. And as we were discovering kind of the next steps in our personal entrepreneurial journeys, we were literally sitting at a coffee shop, and we kind of stumbled upon this massive problem in technology that we had to solve. And basically, as we're there having a very human conversation, everybody around us was so digitally engaged. People were on their computers and tablets and phones, and what were they doing? Well, they were doing most of what we're already doing today. Texting, emailing, calling people, so engaged in social media. I think now Facebook is maybe, I don't know, not as cool, but Snapchat has become the new thing. Is that right? Snapchat, Instagram, like these are all becoming very popular. Back then, 12 billion man-hours were spent on Facebook every month. Just Facebook. We calculated that about 1,600 Empire State Buildings could have been built in the same amount of time. So in looking at that, we said this is a problem that maybe we can solve. How can we find a way to use technology as a way to take that time and apply it to productivity? And so we became very passionate about solving that problem. And it's no coincidence that our mission at Entefy is to save people time so they can live and work better. And this is how Entefy started. Everything that we build in technology is to save people time. So just to give you a little bit of kind of what that means, basically we have 24 hours in a day, and our mission is to give people their 25th hour. And we do this by building technologies that take collaboration, communication to an entirely new level. So just to give you a little kind of insight into what we do and what our company is all about, you heard it a little bit earlier from your awesome dean. We are building the first universal communicator for everyone and everything. So what does that mean? Well, essentially, we bring together 3 very critical aspects of your digital life into one place. All of the people you communicate with, all of the services you use, and all of the smart things that you interact with. How many of you guys use like Uber as a service? Oh, wow. That's like a lot of people. That's great. You guys have driver's license? Okay. What about smart devices? Do you guys have Nest thermostats or Wemo switches or alarm system? I'm sure your families, yeah, some of you guys. So imagine if you had access to all of those digital touch points in your life from a single application. So our core technology runs on top of our AI cognitive platform. It's a proprietary technology that we've built. And everything smart runs on top of your data. The beauty of it is that the single universal communicator application runs beautifully across any device. So imagine you have access to your digital world from every interface that you can imagine. So you could, I don't know, order an Uber from your smartwatch, or text your mom from your computer, or order a pizza from your smart refrigerator eventually. You have the ability to do all of these things because the combinatorial solution allows you to interface with all of these digital touch points from the same exact place. So now I'll share a little bit with you about kind of technology and innovations at Entefy. In order to make something like this possible, we had to assemble 6 technical stacks. It's actually a huge technology challenge if you think about bringing all this data together and then pushing it everywhere. So just to give you a little bit more insight into our technology, we have a native Android application, we have a native iOS application, and then we have a web browser built in React. How many of you guys know React? Okay, we should talk after. Remind me. And then we have a core backend server built in Node.js, so we're sort of a full-stack JavaScript company. And then we have our AI and machine learning layer, which is where all of our proprietary algorithms run. And then everything that we build runs on top of our own infrastructure. We have our own data center with our own machines, some of which we built for our own purposes, and we're not in third-party cloud, mostly because privacy and security is a very big deal to us. So we can get into that a little bit later. Now, a little bit on the AI side. So how does that kind of fit in? Machine learning is a huge initiative for us at Entefy. We love to take data and make it smart. And so we can divide our technology into two categories, the sensory side of AI and the cognitive side of AI. Are you guys familiar with these yet? In school, I'm sure you guys have AI courses that are coming about. The sensory side is everything, if you think about computer vision for images and videos, OCR, audio engineering. And then the cognitive side is everything dealing with language. So if you think about natural language processing, natural language understanding, we do a lot of text summarization, we do a lot of context management. All of that happens on the cognitive side. And at Entefy, the combination of these technologies is what makes us believe that this could be the first time that Jarvis from Iron Man ever became real. Have you guys seen the movie? No? Did someone say no? You've got to watch it. You've got to watch Iron Man. The real-life Jarvis. There's also Samantha from the movie Her. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I have a cool story about that later. But we have the ability to bring this technology to life over at Entefy. This is just a quick visual to kind of share with you what our proprietary AI looks like. And this is what we call the EnteBrain. It's custom for every single user. It's customly designed for everybody. And there are three critical layers. So the first one is the relational data graph. The relational data graph basically says this is all of your data as a user, all of your communication, all of your assets, everything that you personally interact with, which may be very different than what your colleague or your friend interacts with. And then the second piece is the functional capability graph. I don't know if you guys can see these lines from here, but basically that's everything that includes the feature set, functionality, available services in Entefy that a user can use. Now, naturally, that's based on what you connect. So the more things that you're connecting into the system, the more these functionalities will continue to grow. And then the third piece is the context membrane. We believe that the context membrane is the key to true machine intelligence. And we can talk a little bit more about that as well. Kind of cool, no? It's cool. Okay. Now, naturally, a lot of the work that we do at Entefy, a lot of the things that we're trying to build have never been done before, and they're very unique. So innovation and invention and IP, these are big areas for our company. They sit at the core of everything that we do as a team. But I'm very happy and proud of the team for being able to break new ground in a lot of these very critical areas. So artificial intelligence is a huge one for us. Communication, search, cybersecurity, privacy. These are areas that have high impact on our business. We've filed 46 patents, and some of them have been issued, which we're very, very excited about. We're releasing the news as they come in. And then we have a whole suite of unique software and algorithms that we keep as trade secrets. Combined is what makes the universal communicator possible. And we can talk a little bit about the importance of IP and how to separate trade secrets from filed patents a little bit later as well, if that's interesting to you guys. Okay, just a little bit about our team. We have 34 Entefyers. That's our name as a team, the Entefyers. We sit across 4 time zones, and we run in 4 forces. So if you think about every department in the company, this is us. We are growing pretty quickly. Core areas right now are machine learning, software engineering. Again, we'll talk a little bit later about some of that as well. But I would encourage you or anybody you may know who may have a superpower in software or machine learning or any of these areas to come talk to us, to look at our websites. You have all of our open positions. We are hiring very quickly, and we're scaling very fast. Okay, just a little bit about kind of the business, capital and venture funding. Every growing business needs an incredible amount of support from investors, advisors, or partners. At Entefy, we're very fortunate. We've hit some record-breaking milestones as a company. We've raised about $18 million up until today. Our latest round, which we finished middle of last year, priced our company at a $150 million valuation. This is actually very strong, and it's something I'm very proud of our team for, because it's unique that you see this amount of capital and this amount of value built without customers, without revenue and traction and all the key metrics that you usually hear about. At Entefy, our innovation, our technology breakthroughs, our team, that's where a lot of our value comes from. So when people see our technology, of course we're very stealthy, but when people come in and see our technology, they see it against the market, and the potential and opportunity and what's been built is extremely, extremely unique. The other thing is that, there are tons of ways to raise capital. I'm sure you guys all hear about VCs. We are in the Silicon Valley. You hear about angel investors. They're incubators, super angels. There are a lot of different ways to raise money as an early stage company. One of the things that we learned very quickly is that it's important to find the right partners, whether it's capital, service providers, vendors, attorneys, accounting teams, whatnot, advisors. Great things are built by great people, and in order to do that, you have to be a little bit picky about who you're bringing on board at what stage. We're very much a people-centric company, so our network has grown entirely through referrals and people who know people who know people. So we were very careful to target the right kind of investors given domain expertise and knowledge base and connections, so that when the investment is happening, it's not just about the money. It's also about everything else that can help the company grow. So this is a pretty big area for us, and happy to share more about that. Now, every entrepreneur has had different experiences. They build things in different ways, and they have different kind of tools and lessons that they learn as they're growing over time. I do want us to get to Q&A, so I'll try to be a little bit brief here. But I do want to share with you the 5.5 lessons that I have learned as an entrepreneur, and I guess we'll see what they are. Okay, so the first one, touched on that briefly earlier. Amazing things are built by amazing people. So one of the things that we learned very quickly is that save yourself some time, surround yourself with amazing people that can help your company grow. And later we can talk about what amazing actually means in the context of what you're doing. The second one is that great ideas are simmered, not boiled. It's not always the first voice or the first intuition that leads to something extremely unique. So it's important to take a little bit extra time to refine your ideas, to hone in on your market, to understand your audience, and get to that extra step so that by the time you put your product or technology in a user's hand, they feel 1,000x value. It takes a little bit of a discipline, but we learned that this is really important as you're creating new things. The third one is to solve the top 1% problems and thereby eliminating 99% of your competition. This is actually very interesting. If you think about, so the analogy that I have is that a lot of people can climb rocks, but very few want to go climb Mount Everest. And so you're eliminating your competition as the threshold of power is increasing over time. And at Entefy, our Everest is building Jarvis from Iron Man. We're working on a very hard problem that has a lot of moving parts. As you can see, kind of the technology breakthroughs we've made are because of this, and we're standing apart in the industry for sure. But this is something we've learned. If you're going to spend the time, spend it on something that's very impactful and even one of the hardest things to do. Okay, the fourth one is to avoid naysayers because they don't change the world. Life is too short to surround yourself with people that are going to pull you down, and instead find people that are going to lift you up. Find people that are going to add to your journey, that are going to help you grow, help you succeed, and help you support. This is actually a very, very important one. It's one of the ones that I learned at the very beginning as we started our own company, and I think we're very fortunate. We have an incredible group around us as well. Okay, the fifth one is to never stop learning. You have to earn your seat every day. Also pretty critical. I think you guys may know of Wim Rollins. Has anyone heard of Wim? You saw him briefly on the video. I think he spoke here in end of last year. He's one of our board members, was one of our very early investors, and one of his favorite quotes is that your ego is not your amigo. I think it's really good. It's really, really good. I love it. And so we apply this every day at Entefy. Our egos are at the door, and every single day we have an opportunity to learn new things, to jump out of our comfort zone, to spend time on things that are going to help us grow individually and as a group. Okay. Are you guys ready for the 5.5 lesson? Okay. So I have determined there are secrets to success, but I have yet to figure any of them out. So we will get there We will all get there. We will all learn them. But at this point, this is to be determined for all of us, and for me, of course. Okay, so everything we do, if you connect it back to time, it's all about the time that we're spending and how efficiently and effectively we're spending it to make the biggest impact in the least amount of time possible. And it's all limited, so it's important what we're all doing to add value every day and to build our legacy. Now, I wanted to close with that because I know we're going to have a ton of questions, and I love Q&A. Q&A is fun for everybody. So I feel like now is a good time to transition. If you guys have any questions, if you'd like to hear more about what we've talked about today, anything you'd like to learn about us or Entefy or our story. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so now we're at Q&A time. When you've got a question, raise your hand and we'll get you a mic. You can have mine, I'm closer.
So you said that insiders have seen your technology and found it to be like much better than what they see out. And so why aren't you able to take that technology and start selling it and generate some revenue?
For us in particular?
Yeah.
So technology is a big part of what we do. Naturally, if you think about what the universal communicator is made up of, it's a lot harder than we had initially thought. It took us about 3.5 years to build the core platform. And as we speak, your timing for the question is very good. As we speak, we're being approached by a lot of the Fortune 500 companies in an effort to utilize some of our products and technologies within their organizations to save them hundreds of millions of dollars. So these customer conversations are happening with us right now. We had to build the platform. Now our focus is on building our team's capacity to begin to support all of that demand. So this is actually a very good time for us where now that the technology is there, we're scaling the team, and we're about to get into probably our very early revenue any time now.
All right, we've got a question in the back. Oh, okay.
Actually, I can just use my voice.
No,
sure.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Can you share some your specific or secret time management skill with our students? Because, as you said, everybody has 24 hours.
Yes.
So you optimize your time. I think that's a really critical for success.
Absolutely. That could end up being the half a lesson that I haven't learned yet. But optimizing time is, of course, very critical. I think, one of the things that works for me is I try to separate as much as possible the different parts of the day that affect different parts of my brain. And, startup is chaos. That's like the definition of startup. You are all over the place all the time in tons of different areas, from strategic to tactical, in and out all day long. So what I've found is that I like to try to separate my time as best as possible so that I have an opportunity to zone in on what I'm working on at one given time. Actually, school is a lot like that. You guys are you all engineers? Mostly engineers. And you're probably taking different classes, I'm guessing, that are probably touching different aspects of your brain within engineering. And so being kind of all over the place can be very stressful. So if you try to take a little bit of time every day to zone into those specific areas, even if it means Monday is this, Tuesday is that, it can be very helpful in an effort to be more effective and save you some of those hours. And also, everybody has their own tips and tricks for productivity. Everyone can unlock creativity in different ways. We have one of our internal presentations at Entefy is about how we want to go from good to award-winning. And so everything we do, we kind of set that 10x bar for ourselves. And some of the ways to unlock creativity and kind of better optimize your time could be just, taking a 5-minute coffee break. I find that my best ideas, and same with my brother, this is kind of how maybe we just grew up, happen in coffee shops. So taking that little extra time, even though it's distracting from something else, it can allow you to step back so that you're more focused when you zone back in. The other thing could be taking a walk. It could be talking to a friend. Just making sure you give yourself a little bit of escapes in an effort to come back full power. Does that answer your question? I think those are a couple ideas. Okay, sure.
Great. Other questions?
Hi, my name is Reza. I'm a mechanical engineer major. So from what I understand, your company is mostly building software and to develop a kind of base to connect basically every device that you have.
Yeah.
So my question is, are you developing any hardware to implement that in yourself, or are you just relying on other people's hardware?
Gosh, that's something we're so excited about. At this point, it's all software. So the idea of Entefy is you're bringing whatever data it is, communication data, service-style data, IoT data, whatever, and we run our intelligence and data layers on top of hardware currently. That said, we are so excited about the prospect of beginning hardware initiatives because at the end of the day, in order to make kind of the fullest impact, in order to deliver Jarvis, it's its own full piece. It doesn't depend on a lot of other stuff. So that's the goal, and we continue to think about that as a company. But it is funny, we have a few software guys who are actually from Intel, and that's all they think about all day long is like, let me just build this thing so that I can show you how perfect it's going to run there. So it is definitely in our roadmap, but today we're mostly software focused. Yeah.
All right, great questions. Others?
Maybe a couple of questions.
Sure.
The first is that you are tackling the 1% problem.
Yes.
I believe that your problem, you have revealed the problem you're tackling to the world for several years.
Sure.
Are there any other big players that are looking into this particular potential market,
Yes.
big market? The second question is if I may, do you have a short demo to people who think, okay, how would I use this product when it becomes one?
So we are a very stealthy company, so it breaks my heart to tell you we do not have a public demo to share. But I can tell you that when we have conversations with investors, advisors, team members, the product is a very big part of that conversation. The technology is beautiful, and we're very much looking forward to sharing that with the world very soon. Simple use case I can give you, I'm just answering your second question first, and then I'll go with the first one. Simple use cases you can think about is, right now, how many of you guys email? Wow, that's great, guys. Email is like the underbelly of the web. People don't think about it that way, but it is. What about text? IM, Snapchat, Instagram, Uber, Nest, whatever. There are a variety of apps that you're checking in and out of every single day, probably 15 to 20 per person, depending on how active of a user you are. Basically, in Entefy, just imagine a very simple use case. I want to email my professor, I want to call my mom, I want to text my colleague, I want to order an Uber to go to that party tonight and check the Caltrain schedule to return me back in the end of the evening. All of those conversations and all of those interactions are happening within Entefy. And so you have a very seamless user experience with all of those digital touch points, and you're able to thread those conversations together and use AI as a way to facilitate the same interaction with something like a device or service. So that's a simple use case. So data is coming together all the time. It is a very exciting technology. Of course, search is a big part of what we do. Once you bring all your stuff together, imagine on your computer, right? You need to search through stuff. That's how we use computer vision and NLP to find, that picture of your niece in the pink dress at the play from 2 years ago. Those are the kind of things that our technology can do right now. So that piece of it is very exciting. And I'm looking forward to sharing it with all of you guys very soon. The second piece is about kind of who else in the market, the Frightful Five maybe is what you were getting at. The Frightful Five, who's tackling this particular issue. So we like to say you can kind of throw a dart in the valley and hit some competitor that's working on communication or pieces of AI. What we haven't found is somebody tackling the entire area. And so we started in communication. That was our bread and butter as a company. That was the way we wanted to save people time, was so that they physically had to just go into fewer places and they could have everything together. What we quickly learned is that that is the perfect gateway to personalized intelligence. If you want to have your own Jarvis, Jarvis really needs to understand who you are. He needs to understand who you communicate with, why you communicate with somebody, who you want to hear from, who you don't want to hear from. Kind of the good and bad and ugly of all of your relationships. So from that perspective, I find us to be pretty unique that we're tackling it in those phases. And I think also our approach is very different, which sets us a little bit apart in the market. We're not just working, let's say, on computer vision. We're not just working on natural language or just audio engineering. We're combining a lot of these technologies together, building our proprietary algorithms on top of it, and then running it on a data set. And I think those steps that we took, I should say maybe more of a discipline that we took to do them one at a time, ended up creating this 1000x product, where now when a person puts it in their hand, they're feeling that level of impact really quickly. And also, I think we have a little bit of an edge when it comes to not having any legacy burden. We don't have to worry about hundreds of millions of users getting really angry if you change a pixel on their homepage. We don't have to worry about those problems. The other thing is that we don't have to worry about keeping people within a silo. So if you think about the big 5 companies that you're thinking about right now, your user experience is within their silo when you're in each other. There's nothing today that shares all of that data, and that's because those companies are never going to are never going to collaborate with each other. They're always going to compete and try to keep your data separate. So yes, a lot of people are tackling it, big, small, but I think our approach is different in technology, and also our business value is quite strong in some of those areas.
All right, there was a question in the middle, so.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is that in the beginning of the presentation, you said that 50% of the world is connected and 50% is not.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by people, services, and things are not connected?
Yeah, so combination of just access to information. So access is one piece, right? And there's still a good portion of the world that just doesn't have the access. The second measure that we use is quality access. Ease of access, speed, efficiency, being able to access everything simultaneously. So yes, it connects to communication, it connects with devices and things. I would say definitely there's a part of the world who's much more connected if you think about all the things that we interact with versus someone in Zimbabwe just doesn't have either the access or the quality access. So we factor all of those into the calculation that we do for that. But yeah, that's a great question. And devices and services, we actually thought it was going to be relatively small until things grew very quickly, and the things that we're interacting with today, just think about every device or service you deal with, they're creating their own applications. So now in addition to all the communication you do, you're going to have to download these other applications and interact with those too. And they say by 2020, on average, we as users are going to have between, I think it's 26 connected devices on or around us all the time. So it's a huge volume that's about to hit us if something like Entefy doesn't help us with that. So yeah, it's a great question.
Right, there was a question on that side.
So I enjoyed your presentation a lot. I love your motivation.
Thank you.
Of having Jarvis. I mean, who wouldn't want a personal Jarvis?
I agree.
And I understand that your Entefy is to make the efficient society more efficient by adding an extra hour. I love that. Again, that motivation for the idea. But would your business help someone like, say, in Zimbabwe, and improve their, would it give them more access, more connection to the rest of the mobile world, the social world?
Yeah.
Per se?
So it's a great question, and it's a very human question, and it's funny that you use that analogy because that was our motivation when we started. It was that the kid in Zimbabwe has no touch points to where they may need to go. So you have, an entrepreneur who wants to start his own business. He has no access to a Silicon Valley VC or, a Wim Rollins kind of advisor, right? He has no access. So if you think about Entefy, at the core of what we do, time is all of it. The other piece of it, though, is connection. And so in a system like Entefy, you can imagine as the network is continuing to grow, there's no reason that those connections can't happen within the system itself. And so the community and growing our connected touch points, whether it's to people, devices, services, or whatever, Entefy's technology can facilitate that. So that for the first time ever, that kid in Zimbabwe, even if he's just connected on one channel, he should still be able within Entefy to have access to these other touch points because that's how the technology has been built and that's how the consolidation is happening. So that's actually part of our phase 2 because it requires the network effect in order to get there. But we've built the technology as a platform so that we can be able to do those things as we continue to grow. So I love that analogy because that was the analogy that we had used when we first started the company. It's something that's very special and near and dear to our hearts as well. Yeah.
I have another question because...
Hi, Reza.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
So basically there has been a conversation between the big players in the technology industry, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. So Mark is saying that the AI singularity would not be a problem, but Elon would say that, we're all doomed. So would you say that with your technology in advanced AI, when it passes the Turing test, do you think the AI singularity would be a problem, or do you have a way to prevent that?
So this is actually really interesting. First of all, we are in Elon Musk's first office. So it's a good karma space, first of all. Just want to share that. You guys should come visit. Second of all, there are a lot of conversations that are happening about AI because I think half of the world is very scared at the idea of AI replacing humans. And the other half kind of sees it as maybe an opportunity to extend their hours and extend their time. I think in our case, we're very focused on the latter. We want to use AI as a way to help people extend their time. The way that it's been built at Entefy kind of as a platform, but designed specifically for each individual user, is that the AI is adjusting over time depending on what data inputs it has and what technologies and algorithms we're running on top of it. So for us, I lean closer to the side about it can add hours and it can help us as humans be more productive, versus it'll take over the world, have its own language, and do that thing. That's becoming a big story as well. So yeah, I would say that for us, it's all about kind of building on top of what's already there in our lives and trying to make us even more productive. But it's an exciting area. There are a lot of debates right now about how we can use AI to improve our life versus how AI could end up taking over a lot of the core initiatives and core rules.
All right, other questions?
Hi. I had a kind of a follow-on to a couple of questions previous, which was, you were mentioning how like IoT devices and things are going to end up with like 25 different apps to run just like, I don't know, your house or something. Are you guys working on any way to kind of create like a platform or a language that like a new IoT device developer can use to program that code that works kind of native to Entefy, so to speak?
Absolutely. So that's the platform piece that we have. One thing that's a little bit unique about the way that we've built that technology is that you've heard of chatbots, and chatbots have become, kind of became a really big word very quickly. The idea was that every new service, new device would have its own language. You would have to train yourself as a consumer to communicate with it in a certain way. A developer would build it in a certain way. At Entefy, our core platform keeps that language and experience the same across everything. So it's not like you have to retrain yourself on how to talk to Uber versus talk to Nest. The language model stays relatively consistent. So if someone wanted to take an external service, build it into our platform, they can do that, and we would connect it to our language model that would run on top of it. And the reason we built it that way is because if you just have 50 different apps, and then you have a core platform that brings 50 different apps in one place, that's not good enough, because instead of going to 50 different apps, you're just clicking 50 different buttons. So consolidation doesn't just solve that problem. It's more about kind of the next level on top of it, which is once all of these things are coming in place, how do we make sure that a user doesn't have to go relearn for every new thing? So it's very much a human communication model, and that language model is the same whether it's for Nest or Uber or Caltrain or Jay Leno as a celebrity. That piece of it actually doesn't matter to us. So we've built it in such a way that that can happen, and so efficiently that it takes about 24 to 48 hours for us to connect an entirely new service and model to the platform. So that's why we built it that way. And today, we're the only users of our platform currently. But in the next few months, as we continue to get some new customers, that's going to continue to expand so that we can have the outside world built on top of it. That way, access everywhere, single model, no new learning, no new training, right? So that's a big part of what we do as well. Great question. That was really good.
All right, other questions? Down in front again.
Hi.
So my question is about your product, right? I'm a little confused. I think the use cases that you gave about email and stuff sounds like more like B2C use, whereas you talked about some companies are interested in and trying to use your technology. That sounds more like B2B, so I see some kind of contradiction there. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
So we call it H to H, human to human. And the reason that matters is because we built the technology for a prosumer. It's an individual, it's a personalized user experience, right? Which means whether you have it on your own or whether you have it within another company, that context doesn't matter as much to us. But what's happening right now is we built this car, I call it a flying car, but we built this flying car. It has a lot of very specific pieces within it. There are some things that we do that we connect better than anybody else, and those are the pieces that, let's say, an enterprise will want to utilize, right? So you can think about it as the Tesla car and how Ford licenses the long-range battery, right? And so our system is built very similarly. You can use the entire car as a prosumer, or let's say a Fortune 500 will utilize pieces of the AI platform to run on top of their data to run internally. So H to H is the problem that we're trying to solve. And we built for the consumer outward.
Okay. Another question, I guess, is, so like, I think you're talking about email, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, people already use, email clients,
Yeah.
or maybe 10 different at least.
Yeah.
So, probably for you to build something, you have to partner with, let's say, Google and Yahoo and other companies. Why will these companies give you access to their data?
So, yes and no. It depends on what we're accessing. In the case of email, email is an open protocol. So we don't need to partner with anybody for some of those things. Like Gmail is open, right? Yahoo is open or whatnot. That's how you connect it to a lot of the different platforms that you use. In our case, so think about it as onboarding your phone for the first time. You can go through, 50 steps, or you can go through 4, depending on how extreme of a user, how active of a user you are. But right now, we connect to the open APIs. So whatever we have access to at a device level or at an API level, we can bring into our platform. So email is a big one for us. SMS is another one. We're building our own IM, so we're competing a little bit in that area. And then, of course, storage and all those things, we build our own. We have touch points as well from external sources. So the idea is eventually, as you're connecting more and more into the system, that data is coming through our interface, and you're interacting with it all in the same way, from the same place, across any device.
All right, we've got time for a couple more questions. All right, I want to jump in. I have a question just following up on the discussion of H2H.
Yes.
So, and this might be a little bit more speculative because it seems like it's out of your company's core area, but I've had difficulty just in the past couple years with social media, and I wouldn't even call it necessarily AI algorithms that basically converge my information that I'm receiving.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what would be the opportunity for algorithms such as what your company is developing so that I could decide that I want to be broadening and have information thrown at me that's new to me without me having to spend a lot of time going out and seeking it myself.
Right. So that's the kind of area of AI. I touched on it very briefly about proactive AI versus just the reactive AI, right? We all have so much data coming in. The reality is there's a lot of it we just don't care about. And theoretically, your system should know that about you, right? Jarvis would know that about you. So there's no reason why, let's say you're a dean, right? So academia and STEM, these are probably very interesting areas to you. Whereas, I don't know. I have to use an analogy because I don't know if this is true, but maybe like a new recipe in applesauce is not interesting to you, is it?
Could be.
I took a risk there. I wasn't sure, to be honest. Okay.
Further over lunch about all that.
Yeah, sounds good. So basically, the system, as it's understanding the context, so the context membrane that you guys saw in the Entebrain, is also very unique per user. It's about behavior, it's about history, it's about understanding the relationships. And so as you're interacting more in our system, it's learning more and more from you and more about what you care about versus what you don't care about. So in examples like that, it will begin to prioritize the pieces that you do care about and deprioritize the things that you don't, just like a personal assistant would. Well, a good personal is like a really good personal assistant.
So I would want a personal assistant that would understand that I really care about opposing points of view on the political spectrum, for example.
Exactly. Something even...
This is a real problem.
You're funny. So now I get it.
It's a new digital divide going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that level of specificity is very important. So because our system, the ingestion of content is very important, right? We can pull from a bunch of different sources, but it's not important that we just pull it. It's important that we understand the material. We can have insight into it. We can see it, right? We can extract it. All of those pieces matter in order for us to take that extra step for you to be your first proactive AI. So that's kind of the trajectory, the technology trajectory that we see.
All right. How about maybe one more question right there in the middle?
Hi.
So you talked about raising things were built by amazing people.
Yes.
Do you have any advice on how to build that team or build that network of people?
Yes, that is a very difficult area. I think entrepreneurs always underestimate that going into something new. But I don't know how to emphasize it enough. It's really, really important. So, I can speak a little bit to my own experience and then, of course, take the, whatever you find useful. But basically, in our case, this applies to talent, it applies to investors, it applies to advisors. So referrals was one way that we actually grew that network very quickly. So you end up starting with, your service providers, for example. You need attorneys, you need accounting teams, you need, let's say, marketing, whatever services that you're going to go out as you're growing your company. Believe it or not, they can be very connected. So you start with service providers and you're going to trust a referral from your attorney a little bit more than like Bob down the street, right? So of course you start with the friends and family and as far as you can go, but service providers are always a great way to extend the network. Also, you'll notice that once you get into the conversation with, let's say, the first investor, that's a really important one because that investor is going to lead you to a bunch of other people, or that team member is going to lead you to a bunch of other team members. Up until just recently, up until about six to 9 months, we've been a pretty much completely referral-based company, even on the team side. So you bring in a new engineer who you met in college, or you work with a professor, the professor refers you to a couple of students. This has happened to us as well. So you begin to get those really familiar connections of people that know each other, that have worked together, and you become really good at making sure that things are working out. Because it doesn't always work out. And it can be very quick that, someone looks great on paper and then you put them kind of next to you and you're trying to build these things together and maybe the fit just isn't there. So I think in Entefy's case, we're a little bit slower to hire. We're also very performance-based at our company. We call ourselves a high-performance family. That's the definition of our culture. So we're constantly trying to raise the bar, constantly trying to raise the average IQ. And we have to become stronger and stronger that way. So as much as possible, friends and family, professors and students, vetting out not just the skills, but also the motivation for why they're joining you on an initiative like this. Startups, it's not a lifestyle business. It's beautiful on Silicon Valley. I mean, people watch that all the time. They're like, wow, that's so great. Or it's so real or whatever. But the reality is that it's hard to capture something like a startup on a film. It's chaos. It's a lot of ups and downs, emotional ups and downs. But the most important thing is that your team and the people around you are in it for the mission and the vision. Because products and technology will also change over time. So you want to make sure that the people that are going in this with you are fully driven and motivated by the same things that you are. And also putting people in tough decisions. Like you have an interview and the saying is that you don't know how something about a hot tea bag. You don't know how a person's going to react until you put them in the hot water, right? Like a tea bag. That's how we react as people. So being able to kind of create situations of stress or challenge and being able to see how people handle them, that's also an interesting way to vet some things out earlier on. Okay.
All right, so I think we should stop and let's thank the speaker again, and we've got a little bit of time for her to...
Thank you. Thank you.